On this video, I'm going to try to share some, I think, some really interesting information about paint, about adding pigment and making your own paint. And I'm drawing on my experience of painting for, well, over 50 years, maybe 60 even, who knows. Yeah, I don't even know how old I am. But anyway, the point is we do a lot of custom wheels. I've done them for many, many years with relatively good success. People seem to enjoy when I showed them the way that I've done it. They seem to be able to adapt very quickly and put that information to good use. And we also got some footage I'm going to try to recover from one of Luciano's old track days where he was riding his TZ250 on, I think it was Millville, but I'm going to try to work on that footage at the end of the video. But this was a really good day. Now today looks like it'll be a very special day, a really special day in a lot of ways. Number one, it's already above freezing. Number two, the sun is out. Number three, our wheel looks like it's ready to put the silver paint on. And I'm going to wait till it warms up a little more. I want to stack the deck in my favor. I want to get this experimental paint that I've done the test on. And the test is on a previous video, so if anybody really wants to get involved in mixing paint. But I'm going to mix up a fresh batch today. And I already have the test wheel that I'm happy with the color and the way it worked out. And I'll explain more about that when we get down to the shop because it still is a little chilly out here. But here's the whole point though. In the middle of our winter, this is an exceptional day. And I've said many times how lucky I've been in the course of working on the MT09. I've hit days with right in the middle of two bad days when I wanted to paint there was a good day. I have been very lucky up to this point. Still have to do the back wheel and I still have 3 or 4 other little things to do to that before spring comes. But I'm hoping by spring I'll have a completely transformed bike that'll be more mine than Yamaha's. Well, let me be honest about something else I do, and I do it pretty much every day. I come out, I have to change the battery charges, chop the ice, feed the birds, feed the rabbit, whatever. But I always look around and I go, wow, I got this little collection, I call it my humble bike collection. Not one of these bikes doesn't have a lot of hours of my labor in it. These are my bikes. These are not rent a bikes or buy a bike or lease a bike. These are my bikes, and there's a difference. I don't know what the difference is, but I know it's different anyway. When you put hundreds and hundreds, in the case of the FZR, 900 hours of restoration in, that bike now becomes yours. That isn't Yamaha's anymore. So I'm sure everybody does this. And the people that don't do it, maybe they don't even understand the passion, but it doesn't matter because I know there's enough people. And you name who you want, from Vince to Glenn to Luciano, whoever. Everybody I know has some passion to customize their motorcycle. In my case, it's usually paint and custom wheels. And the wheels are the most difficult part of the bike to do. And the absolute worst one as far as labor, and a lot of people don't even notice that you did it. But the people that have a passion do notice. Now somewhere on this video I'm going to put, I guess I'll put it at the end. Luciano gave me a chip from a track day that they had at Millville. I didn't go to this track day, but he had taken video with his GoPro. And I know there's a lot of, within our friends, and I just named Chris as one, and Glenn is another one actually, that we encouraged them to go to a track day. They loved it, they got involved in it. I think Vlad too, I don't even know. But that track day experience is a wonderful thing. Now, the difference is for people that have never been to a track day, in your mind, you're thinking what a track day is. Yeah, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I'm going to go pass everybody on a track. You always have. But when you go out there, you take that big slice of humble pie, take a big bite of it, and it's a good experience. It makes you, I think, it makes you a safer, better rider. And the biggest thing it does for me is I never push the envelope when I'm riding on the street where there's trees and guardrails and cars coming the other way. The track day is such a wonderful thing. And Luciano, I'm going to try to get some of that so people maybe can get the feel. I know Michelle is one of the people that I would like to see. I would even be, if I could possibly help her get to a track day. Even they have the free lunchtime little ride that Chris went on, because it gives you a focus as to what that going on in that environment is compared to going on the street where there's deer. The worst thing around our area, there's deer that run out and turtles walking across the street. So you're always riding at 70% or something, and your eyes are in the back of your head looking if the law enforcement has a helicopter following you and they're going to throw a net over you. But that, I'm going to try to put that somewhere on this video. But today is such an exceptional day, right in the middle of the winter. And it's supposed to, Karen said it's supposed to go to 37 degrees by lunchtime. And I know the kids have some things over at their house I have to help them with. We're moving the dishwasher and moving the refrigerator, whatever they're doing today. And I think this stuff's all going to wind up in my garage by tomorrow. So I want to get started. I want to, first thing, have my coffee, of course, feed the birds and rabbit, and get down there and mix the paint. And I'll try to share what I've learned about this silver paint. Well, hopefully some of this will melt up if it goes much above freezing today, but it's what's in our favor. Painting silver is it's a sunny day. That'll be a big help. And it really is supposed to warm up, but the problem is it isn't warm yet. We need our coffee. Now looking at this wheel, and it's been right under a heating vent for, well, 12 hours to 10 hours, whatever. And I'm looking at it real careful. I'll take it out to the other bench where there's a fluorescent light right on top. Because what I want to do is I want to look for anything I still want to fix. You know, to be honest, I don't want to really even touch it. There's not much to fix here. Because I did so much grinding and sanding, I spent 4 full days grinding and sanding. I think 5 full days, maybe 5. I'll have to check my calendar. Anyway, but the prep on this is real good. It's got thin primer, very thin. I put it on as thin as I could, and it's been drying, and I'm just excited about having this day in the middle of the winter. It's like going to the Bahamas. Now, on a previous video, I've already painted this wheel, and this is one of 5 RD wheels I found up in my attic in the top of the garage. I did a careful test of this paint. It's on a previous video. It's a whole video of mixing paint, so I don't want to belabor that too much, but I'm going to mix this exact paint from the same can of pigment and the same 4-to-1 mix. Now, the thing I'm going to try to do today that's different, normally you would paint this with the urethane paint, and then put clear on. What I'm doing is putting the pigment in the clear, and then I'm going to put the clear on top of that. So what's going to happen is, I think and I hope, I can get a thinner coat of paint on with the same coverage, and thin is always my friend when I go to change tires and that type of thing. And I'll have a lot less chance I'll have runs and drips or whatever. And then I will babysit that until that paint is almost totally dry. But this is going to be a fun day, and I'm going to try to learn something, and most of all, try to pass what I learn on to you. So from this point in the job on, this is the only paint I'm going to be using. Now, I have a little trick that I'm going to try to do. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try it, and I'll pass that on. This is the material. You can buy it off the internet, and this was donated by Joe Padula when I did his Ducati. And of course, I always try to leave the tip. If you're not using paint on an everyday basis like we do almost every day, it's a good idea to keep the hardener in the refrigerator, not the freezer. But this is a good quality clear, and it's reasonably priced. So I took out this is the tub I have with all my silver paint, silver pigments, silver flakes, all of the things I've mixed and tested on that previous video. But I came to the conclusion at the end of that what would work for me, the look I was looking for, was to mix the paste pigment, and it worked out so well. I was shocked. I really didn't think that was going to work. I thought what was going to happen is one of the flake, each one of these is a little different, and I have some with big flakes, some with little flakes. They've all been tested. They all have their number. And you would think, why is he going through all this trouble? Just go buy a can of silver paint, even a can of spray paint at the AutoZone. Because I have a look in my mind that I want. And I don't want it to look like chrome. I want it to look like bright silver, but not chrome. And that's a very difficult, it's like a walking a fine line on that. And I want it to be shiny. I don't want it to be dull. The shiny is a real important thing because it helps me maintain the wheels. And these wheels get wiped off every time I ride the bike. These are my pride and joy. So anyway, not to belabor the point, but I wanted to explain that I'm going to take the raw pigment, and in the course of this video, well, I'll show it right next, is how I mix it and some of the tricks you can use if you're going to copy this system. And maybe it'll work so well, I'll be doing it this way forever. And if it doesn't work, it's going to be paint remover time. So when we did all our painting experiments, this is the one I like the best. And what this material is, and this is not relevant to what we're doing, this is if you're using it in aircraft dope. This was made by, and one of the products that I tested when we were developing Brodak dope for the model airplanes. And this became B25 silver. So what happened, you can see how much of it I've already used. What you do with this, if you were doing a normal paint job, you just mix this into some clear binder, and that would be your paint. But I don't know if you can see it. It's a much brighter, see, as the flakes get smaller and smaller, the material gets brighter and brighter, especially in the sun. So when I tested this against the R1 paint, this was a little bit brighter, and I like that. And when it's shiny and bright and easy to maintain, hey, I put over a week of 4-hour days in the shop to get the wheel to this point. I don't want to risk it now. So we're going to mix this. I'll show how I mix it. And it's really an art, not a science. And this is a thoroughly clean jar. I don't want to have a jar that still has pickle juice in it or anything. And thank you, Turbo Steve and Maria, for donating these jars. This is a mix I'm going to make for that motorcycle with paste pigment, and it's ready for the hardener. Now I'm going to explain how you would add the pigment to this material. So the first step on this, I have my clean jar, and I think for this job, based on how much paint I've used on the other wheels, that if I mix 8 ounces of paint, 2 ounces of hardener, that'll be 10 ounces of paint. I'll have plenty. But if I put the hardener in, then whatever I don't use, I have to throw away. So what I'm going to do is just mix this material, strain it, put it back in the jar, strain it, save it, shake it, get it ready. But then when I put it in the gun, I'll add the hardener, and I'll be ready to paint. And this, the shelf life of this will be the same as in the can. So the first thing is, and this is not the kind of thing, it's not rocket science. This is the kind of thing that you've just got to be real careful. And in the case of, I always think this is funny, it's really not super critical, like if you did 1 drop extra of hardener or 1 drop not enough, but I'd like to get it as accurate as possible. So the first thing is going to be to get 8 fluid ounces in here. This is 4. Every once in a while I do this and I forget how many I did. I just go look back at the video. This is 5, 6. I can buy these containers. We have a dollar store here that has these containers, and if you buy them online, they're probably even cheaper, but very inexpensive anyway. Now the thing is, now I don't want to add any hardener. Now I've gotten to this point. This is now 8 ounces. I know how much I have here. So when I take 4 ounces out, and I'll add 1 ounce of hardener. It's not a random thing. Or I can put 2 ounces of hardener in here, and then I have to throw away whatever I don't use. So now, if anybody's wondering, or they're curious, how much pigment do you put into the paint? Well, when I did the work I did for Randolph Products, when we developed Brodak dope, the late George Anderson, who was one of the people that was very knowledgeable about paint and in charge of these kind of things, gave me a rule of thumb that seems to work pretty well. And it's pretty simple. You would think it would be super high tech. It's not that high tech. You do a test piece. If it covers in one piece, you might have too much pigment in one coat, I mean. If it doesn't cover in 2 coats, you don't have enough pigment. And that's a golden rule that's worth watching this whole video to figure it out. Now, once I get this mixed, and before I actually shoot the wheel, I'll shoot a light bulb or a tin can or something to see. Now, because I've done this for many years, I can kind of do this by eye, but there's always these ratios that are on the can, which, you know, sometimes they're perfect and sometimes they're not. But I can see by looking at the jar, just looking at the screwdriver, yeah, we're going to need a little more pigment than that, that's for sure. So this is the kind of thing, and I always say it's the art, not a science. But if I just add a little bit at a time, I can usually tell just by looking. Some people can't, but you can always do the test. Add not enough in the beginning, because you can always come right back down after you do your test and put another little scoop of pigment in. But if you take it out, you've got to mix up more material. Now in this case, I'm hoping this is going to be enough to do a wheel. So of course the first thing is I need to strain up 4 ounces. And it looks like I have enough pigment, but I'm going to definitely do a test to make sure that I haven't cheated myself some way here. Now that old rule of thumb of if it covers real good in one coat, you might need to add a little binder. We'd like it to, and actually I looked at some other videos that Chromax made, and they always say it should cover in a coat and a half when they paint whites and stuff. So maybe Chromax is a little smarter. Nah, they're definitely smarter than me. Anyway, it is an art, not a science. I don't think, unless you're really, you know, you're painting the Queen's throne or something, you really have to worry about it. And we will do that little test. That usually, the test doesn't lie. Now, by looking in there, I can see that there are some little things that didn't dissolve exactly right, so that the straining of it is critical. And there's always some little parts that don't dissolve. It really doesn't matter. We've added enough pigment. If anything, I think this might have a little bit too much pigment, but we can always just add a little more material. This is going to be an interesting test. So the hardener is added, and I want to stir this. I always use a drill. Or a piece of carbon fiber, anything but wood. Really not supposed to stir some, but I don't know which ones you're not supposed to stir, so you can play it safe and just don't stir anything with wood. So the test piece looked like I had the pigmentation pretty close, and the second coat covered up all the lettering on the can. And of course, because all this material is now two-part with hardener, I'm wearing a mask all the time. And I tried to put this on in thin coats. Notice I'm using a small spray gun, a small Harbor Freight gun. And the biggest thing I want to get it on like that gun is a big airbrush. A lot of very, very thin coats. So I have the same material as if I had put one coat on with the big gun, but it goes on in 8 or 10 very thin coats, and it lays down so much nicer. Now, because this is the two-part, it has a little bit more gloss than if we were using ordinary urethane paint, which usually dries a little dry. So here I'm flipping the wheel around, and this is very, very, very delicate. This is, you don't want to drop the wheel right now. And I'll put this in fast forward. This is the second side of the wheel. And I'm doing exactly the same thing, painting the backs of the spokes, the front of the spokes, the side. Start at the middle, get a little bit extra here and there and everywhere. Looking for dry spots. This just takes a lot of time. It is not like when you use the big spray gun and you can blow it on in one coat. But you use the big spray gun, there's downsides. A lot of times you get the material on too thick in spots. It covers up some of the sharp detailing, and you run the risk of getting runs. Now, it's still pretty cold out here. You can see the snow. So when I got done with the spraying, I wanted to constantly keep that wheel moving, so there was no chance in the first 5-10 minutes I was going to get a run anywhere. And I like to look at it from every possible angle. I move it so that the sun is reflecting on different sides of it. And silver, possibly the hardest color of all to paint in terms of mistake. This was a beautiful day to paint, except the temperature wasn't a whole lot over freezing, just enough that I was very enthusiastic. And in this case, I take a hairdryer, just try to, in the first 5 or 10 minutes, keep the part a little bit warmer than it normally would be. If it was warmer out, I wouldn't have to do this. Now that's all our silver on it. Now what we're going to do is, using a separate gun, mix up the same amount of clear. And because it's really cold out here, it's really not as warm as it looks. I wanted to kind of just warm that up with the hairdryer. Well, I think it's cheap insurance. And of course, during this part, I always keep the wheels spinning as much as possible. It kind of minimizes runs. I call that babysitting. So with all the silver on the wheel, it laid down pretty nice. I didn't have any spots that looked like they even remotely needed touch-up. And the color, the sun is going away little by little here, but the color was just what I want. This is a dedicated clear gun. It has nothing in it but clear. So I always leave the tip in a thing of acetone. And try to keep it as clean as possible. We're going to mix up a batch of clear and hopefully get the clear on there. It's been babysitting for about a half an hour. Now, getting it clear on, just like the silver, I want it on almost as if I was painting with an airbrush. Very, very thin coats, but a lot of coats. Not one big coat like you throw it on in a bucket or a mop or something. And I found that doing complex parts like wheels, you have to be willing to spend that extra time to get the paint to lay down. And of course, every step of the way, I'm trying to keep the wheel spinning. That's kind of important. I ought to make a little, get a mouse and a little treadmill or something to get this to do this. Now, I'm not sure you can see this in the video, but little by little we lost the sunshine of the day. And rather than a day warming up like it was supposed to, it kind of stayed there, hovered around 35 degrees. And I was just thinking, you know, boy, it would have been nice if it went up another 5 or 10 degrees. I wouldn't have to do this hairdryer thing. But I just wanted to make sure I got that coat to lay down. And the hairdryer seems like a good thing when it's really cold like that. So while that wheel is drying, we're at the kids' house to see progress, and I think they're going to have their washer and dryer delivered or something today. I don't know. So you can see they already got some sheeting up, sheathing. Amazing how quickly this all goes together. Oh wow, this is going to be beautiful. This is the extension on the back of their house, and we're watching it on a day-to-day basis. Now this used to be a 52-foot deck. Of course now it's a 32-foot deck. And this used to be this is all their property, by the way. And beautiful birds are here in the summer, place for the kids to play. And it's a super neighborhood. And there's where all my motorcycles are gonna go. We're gonna have to take the handlebars off to get them in there. Or, if Karen throws me out of the house, I can just live there. And this used to be the back of their house. Ooh, got the roof on already. They're almost dried in. I gotta go see what the kids are up to. Wow, look at this. All right. Have a good day, and we'll see you later. Boy, does this bring back memories. The late John DeTavio and I did some fun stuff. 3-story house. And what's so good about this is the kids live 7 blocks from our house, and very convenient when we want to visit them, or you know, they want to visit us sometime too. Are you going to be in a good mood while I'm working here? What? What? Come on. Hey. Supposed to be, oh, well, he wants to play. Oh, what a surprise. What a surprise.
Drop it. I thought maybe.
So what we're basically doing is putting everything that's in the 2 rooms in the house, including the kitchen, into these easy pack boxes. So this is the first real test, a real test. Now we have the test wheel, but I didn't prep that wheel or do much. But from this can of paste pigment, silver paste, and I'm not sure you can even buy this where you would buy it, because I have this probably for 30 or 40 years. But apparently it never goes bad. Now, the wheel is drying out in the garage. It's got to dry there overnight, and then we'll bring it down, put it under a heating vent for at least 1 or 2 days just to get the paint to harden up before we do anything with it, even and mount the tire or anything like that. I like the paint to harden up, and we'll look for any spots. It looks perfect now, but you're going to see a spot you may not like later on or whatever. It really did. And that hairdryer thing is a good thing in really, really cold weather. So in the course of the day, we took care of the kids' stuff. They got half of their kitchen moved out. The construction's going great. And I got to see if I can pull out a couple little outtakes from Luciano's video here. And these track days, we had so much fun. We went on many of them. I don't even know, over the course of about 5 years. And I loved the FZR on the track, except boy, oh boy, is it a handful. I rode Rob's bike on the track, the Black Ninja. That was great. I've ridden all of Luciano's bikes. We would always switch bikes at some point in the day. And I did not ride his 250, his TZ250, which is the thing from this video. Makes me jealous because he already sold the bike. I'll never get to ride it. So here's just some pictures, and these are not the pictures that go with this track day, but from other track days we were at. and he would take the, this is a TZ250. This is a real race bike. This is not a street bike that's converted over to be, like the bikes I rode on the track, all the Yamahas, they always started their life as a street bike, and you wound up changing the engine. My late friend Kenny Augustine did most of the engine work, made exhaust pipes, etc. But they were not really like a real TZ. Now this is a real TZ. This is a real race bike. And when you're out on a racetrack with a real race bike, not a bike that's converted, this bike is probably more than 100 pounds lighter than some of the bikes, the 600 sport bikes or whatever. And the handling is so much better. It's so much different even than a bike that's converted to a track bike. But this is not a race. This is a day to have fun, and we had a blast looking back at this day. And this I believe is Millville too, because there's the FZR in the background, and we were we were having fun. He rode the FZR, but he wouldn't let me ride the TZ. So I don't know what's wrong with that picture. Joe Adamusco joined us for one of these track days. But the thing, if you've never been to a track day, whatever you think it is in your mind, when you actually go out there for the first time on a live track, and it's a good idea if you never went before to go to riding school to see what some of the rules of etiquette are, and just to find out, number one, how to get on and off the track safely. And sometimes that can be challenging when you're new. But here's some footage. I'm going to take some outtakes from this chip that Luciano gave me to use. So what I wanted to do is just kind of set the stage here, as this is Luciano pulling out onto the track, and this is what usually happens is, in the case if you're one of the first ones out there, they make you wait a few minutes till other people show up. And in the case Luciano and I, we used to like to ride together, and I'd like to videotape him, and of course he videotaped me. So what would happen is they hold you up there indefinitely. So there, as we're getting out on the track here, and I'm not going to talk over it. I'm going to let the sound come in, but the sound is somehow not exactly correct on this, and I'm not sure why. And maybe it's this is an old GoPro camera, but I just wanted to show the view of this, of what it looks like from when you go out for the first part of the lap, or the first lap even. The tires are cold. I know Luciano and I, neither one of us have tire warmers because we're not super experts or anything. So what happens is that if you've never seen the track before, you're on your first track day and you look around and you think, whoa, this doesn't look like riding down through Harriman Park. This is Thunderbolt, by the way. This is not lightning. It's Thunderbolt. I can tell by the bridge on the track. Anyway, this is some pretty good footage, and I'll let the sound come back in. Enjoy some of this. So thanks to Luciano for sharing that video, and I took some outtakes out of it. He has the whole thing posted on his channel, and it's probably, I think, 40 minutes long, so I didn't have the time on this. But I did take the outtakes. Hopefully you could get a little flavor of how it feels to ride a TZ. It's a lot of fun, needless to say. And since he sold a bike, I guess I'll never know. Anyway, we are moving along on a wheel project. It's going to sit up by the heating vent a couple days while we do other things around the shop, help the kids with their house. We do try to post up a video at least every day, and sometimes we miss a day, but not very often. And we hope the information on it is of some value to you, useful, if at worst, a lot of fun, and that you enjoy sharing these little interactions with our family. And thanks for watching. Thanks a whole lot for watching, in fact.